But as Jason's hands continued to work their way over my back, relaxing was becoming harder. Each movement of his strong fingers seemed to send ripples through my body, and I could feel myself responding in ways I hadn't expected. At first, it was just a soothing feeling, the gentle pressure easing my muscles. But with every stroke, I could feel something else, a pull, a quiet temptation that stirred inside me. Growing stronger with each passing second, I tried to focus on the relaxation, tried to ignore the way my body seemed to react to him. It wasn't just the massage anymore. It was something more, something deeper. I could feel it in the way my heart began to race a little faster, in the way my breath caught in my chest. I didn't want to acknowledge it, didn't want to admit that something inside me was shifting. But the pull was undeniable. I shifted slightly, my face turning just enough to catch a glimpse of his face. As my eyes met Jason's, something inside me froze. Time seemed to stand still, and for a brief moment, the world outside of the room disappeared. There was only the space between us. The room, once calm and soothing, now felt electric, like the air itself had charged with an unseen energy. Jason's eyes held mine, and in that brief moment, I could see something there, something I hadn't noticed before. His gaze was soft, but there was a certain intensity to it, something that made my pulse quicken. My body responded instinctively, and I could feel the warmth of a blush creeping up my neck. The weight of the moment was heavy, and I couldn't look away. His hands, still working their way down my back, seemed to press deeper now, and the air between us felt thick, charged with an energy that was hard to ignore. It was strange. The room had felt safe and peaceful just moments before, but now it felt filled with tension. Unspoken, but then nonetheless, I could feel the heat in my cheeks, the way my breath became a little more shallow, and I knew that something had shifted. What had started as a simple massage had somehow become something more. It was a warm Saturday afternoon when I decided to take a break from my usual routine and go for a walk around the neighborhood. My name is Rose, and I'm in my late 20s. Living in a cozy little apartment in a quiet part of town. I don't have much excitement in my life, so I usually spend my days either working from home or reading books. But today felt different as I walked down the familiar streets. I noticed my neighbor Jason out in front of his house. Jason was in his 30s, tall with broad shoulders and a charming smile. He was always friendly, always greeting me when we ran into each other. We had never been close, but we were cordial, exchanging pleasantries whenever we crossed paths. Jason had a reputation in the neighborhood. Everyone seemed to know him and speak highly of him. People often said he was the kind of man who would help anyone in need, no matter the situation. He was always ready with a friendly smile and a helping hand. If someone needed assistance moving furniture, or if there was a problem with their car, Jason would be the first to offer his help. The kids in the neighborhood loved him because he was fun and always had time to talk. Even the elderly neighbors admired him because he would mow their lawns or carry their groceries without ever expecting anything in return. I had heard many stories about Jason. Some people said he was so generous that he would even give away things he didn't need just to make someone else's life easier. Others mentioned how good he was with tools, able to fix anything that was broken. But one thing that really stood out was the rumor that Jason was amazing at giving massages. They said his hands could work wonders on tired, sore muscles, and that anyone who was lucky enough to get a massage from him would feel like they were floating on air. At first, I didn't think much of it. It just seemed like another one of those small-town rumors. After all, who would believe that someone was so good at something like that? Sure, Jason was nice and all, but I didn't think much of his skills. I figured it was just something people said to make him sound even more special than he already was. But everything changed the day I needed help the most. It had been a long, tiring week. I had been working non-stop, trying to keep up with everything that needed to be done between work, 'chores' and other responsibilities. I was exhausted, My body felt like it was made of stone, heavy and stiff from all the tension. No matter how much I tried to relax, my muscles ached, and I could feel the weight of the stress in every movement. That Saturday, I was feeling it more than ever. My back hurt so much that I could barely move, and my shoulders felt tight as if they were locked in place. I tried everything to ease the pain. Hot showers, stretching, even resting, but nothing worked. My body felt like it was holding on to the stress, and I didn't know how to make it stop. That was when I heard a knock on my door. It was Jason. He was holding a small bag in his hand, with something inside that looked like a bottle of oil. I was surprised to see him. We weren't close friends, just neighbors who exchanged pleasantries here and there. I wondered what brought him over to my apartment on that particular day. "Hey, Rose." Jason greeted me, his usual warm smile lighting up his face. "I noticed you've been walking a bit slowly these days. You okay?" I couldn't help but smile back, even though I felt exhausted. "Yeah, just really tired. My back is killing me." Jason's smile faded slightly as he looked at me with concern. "That doesn't sound good. You've been working too hard, huh?" "Yeah, I guess," I replied. "I've tried everything to make it better, but nothing's working." Jason thought for a moment and then, as if remembering something, his eyes brightened. "Well, I might be able to help. I'm pretty good at giving massages. I've helped a few people around here and they all say it works wonders." I was a bit hesitant at first. We weren't exactly close, and the idea of letting someone give me a massage felt a little strange, but the pain in my back was unbearable, and the thought of getting some relief sounded too good to pass up. "Are you sure it's okay? I mean, I don't want to trouble you," I said, still unsure. Jason just nodded, his face serious. "It's really no trouble at all, Rose. I just want to help you feel better." And that's when it hit me. Jason wasn't just someone who did nice things for others. He genuinely cared. He was one of those rare people who would drop everything to help, without expecting anything in return. I realized then that he wasn't just known for his kindness, but also for his ability to make people feel better, both physically and emotionally. With a soft sigh, I agreed. "All right, if you're sure you can help, then I'd appreciate it." Jason smiled again, and I could see that he was genuinely happy to help. "I'll set things up and we can get started. I promise you'll feel much better afterward." As Jason set up the area in my living room, I couldn't help but feel a little curious about the man who had such a good reputation in the neighborhood. He wasn't just the friendly neighbor. He was someone who had the skill and heart to make a real difference in people's lives. It had been a long week, filled with work stress and a constant feeling of fatigue. I couldn't shake off the soreness in my back, and by the time Saturday came around, I was exhausted. I decided to take a nap, but it didn't help much. The pain lingered, making it hard to find any comfort. Just as I was about to give up and try some over-the-counter painkillers, Jason came by. He stood there, holding a small bag with what seemed to be a massage oil bottle peeking out. "Hey, Rose," he said with a grin. "I noticed you've been walking a bit slow these days. You've been working too hard, haven't you?" I smiled weakly. "Yeah, you could say that. My back's been killing me." Jason nodded, looking thoughtful for a moment. "I have some experience with massages. I could help you out if you want. It's no trouble at all." I hesitated for a second. We had never really spent time together, outside of casual conversations, and the idea of him massaging my back felt a little strange. But at the same time, I was desperate for some relief. "Okay," I said, a bit unsure, but willing to give it a try if you're sure it's not too much trouble. "Not at all," he reassured me. "I'll make sure you feel better." He stepped inside and set up a small massage area in my living room, placing a cushion on the floor and adjusting the lighting to create a calm atmosphere. The scent of lavender filled the air, As he gently warmed up the massage oil, I lay down on my stomach trying to relax. But my nerves were still on edge. As Jason's hands began to press gently into my back, I couldn't help but feel a little awkward. It was a strange feeling having someone else's hands on me like that, especially someone I didn't know that well. I tried to relax, but a part of me still felt tense. However, as his fingers dug into my muscles, I started to notice the pressure wasn't uncomfortable at all. In fact, it felt oddly comforting, like the weight of the world was slowly being lifted off my shoulders. Jason's hands were strong, yet there was a softness to them, a carefulness that made me feel safe. The tension that had built up in my muscles for days seemed to soften. With every movement, I could feel the knots and tightness slowly unraveling. A soft sigh slipped from my lips before I could stop it. The relief was immediate, and I didn't even realize how badly I needed it until that moment. "You're doing great." Jason's voice was calm, almost like a lullaby as he spoke. His words felt reassuring, like he was guiding me to a place where I could let go of all the stress I'd been carrying. I closed my eyes, trying to let go of any remaining discomfort, and let myself relax into the moment. I could hear the soft, rhythmic sound of his hands moving across my back, and it somehow helped me feel more at ease. The awkwardness I had felt earlier seemed to fade, replaced by a soothing warmth that spread through my body, starting from the spot where his hands were working and radiating outward with each gentle stroke. I felt more of the tension melt away. My mind, which had been filled with thoughts about work, life, and everything else, began to quiet. The only thing I could focus on now was the sensation of Jason's hands, easing the pain from my back, pushing me further into a state of relaxation. It was as if every touch was a gentle reminder to let go, to forget about everything else. Slowly, the discomfort that had plagued me for so long turned into a soft, calming heat, and I could feel it spreading through my entire body. The tightness in my shoulders, my neck, even my legs all seemed to fade away, leaving behind nothing but a peaceful sense of relief. I let out another sigh, this one deeper as I sank further into the moment. There was something almost magical about it, how Jason's simple touch could make me feel so much better. My body, once so tense and stiff, was now relaxed and at ease, as if all my worries had melted into the air. The more I let go, the more I realized how badly I needed this moment of peace. But as time passed, I began to feel a different kind of warmth. It was something deeper, more intense. The gentle touch of his hands, the closeness of his body, began to stir something inside of me that I hadn't expected. I hadn't noticed before, but there was an undeniable attraction to him. Jason's hands moved with precision, kneading the tension from my muscles. But his touch was different now. It wasn't just a massage. There was something more intimate. In the way his fingers brushed against my skin, I could feel my heart racing, my breath becoming shallow as his hands worked their way down my back. I was trying to ignore the growing heat in my body, but it was getting harder and harder to do so. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. "Yeah," I replied, a little breathless. Just a little sore," he chuckled softly, his fingers pressing deeper into my back. "I know how that feels. Just relax, Rose." But as Jason's hands continued to work their way over my back, relaxing was becoming harder. Each movement of his strong fingers seemed to send ripples through my body, and I could feel myself responding in ways I hadn't expected. At first, it was just a soothing feeling, the gentle pressure easing my muscles. But with every stroke, I could feel something else, a pull, a quiet temptation that stirred inside me, growing stronger with each passing second. I tried to focus on the relaxation, tried to ignore the way my body seemed to react to him. It wasn't just the massage anymore. It was something more, something deeper. I could feel it in the way my heart began to race a little faster, in the way my breath caught in my chest. I didn't want to acknowledge it, didn't want to admit that something inside me was shifting. but the pull was undeniable. I shifted slightly, my face turning just enough to catch a glimpse of his face. As my eyes met Jason's, something inside me froze. Time seemed to stand still, and for a brief moment, the world outside of the room disappeared. There was only the space between us. The room, once calm and soothing, now felt electric. Like the air itself had charged with an unseen energy. Jason's eyes held mine, and in that brief moment, I could see something there, something I hadn't noticed before. His gaze was soft, but there was a certain intensity to it. Something that made my pulse quicken. My body responded instinctively, and I could feel the warmth of a blush creeping up my neck. The weight of the moment was heavy, and I couldn't look away. His hands, still working their way down my back, seemed to press deeper now, and the air between us felt thick, charged with an energy that was hard to ignore. It was strange the room had felt safe and peaceful just moments before. But now it felt filled with tension, unspoken. But then, nonetheless, I could feel the heat in my cheeks. The way my breath became a little more shallow, and I knew that something had shifted. What had started as a simple massage had somehow become something more. I could see in his eyes that he knew exactly what was happening. But instead of pulling back, he seemed to embrace it. His hands moved with more purpose now, his touch more deliberate. I felt a heat spread through my entire body as I realized that he wasn't just massaging me, he was making me feel things I hadn't expected. I should have stopped. It should have said something, but the temptation was too strong. The way he touched me, the way he made me feel, everything about it was intoxicating. Before I knew it, I was lost in the moment, unable to resist the pull any longer. Jason's fingers traced along my spine, sending shivers down my body. I could feel him leaning closer, his breath warm against my ear. "You're not in pain anymore, are you?" he whispered. I shook my head, my mind hazy, the lines between right and wrong blurring. My body was responding to him, and I couldn't stop it before I even fully realized what was happening. I felt Jason's lips press gently against my shoulder. His touch, once so calm and comforting, had changed. It was no longer just a massage, it was something more. His lips were warm, soft and unexpected, and the kiss sent a rush of heat through my body, leaving me breathless. My mind tried to catch up with my emotions, but in that instant I knew without a doubt that I had crossed a line. Jason pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine. His expression was unreadable, but there was a quiet question there, like he was waiting for me to react, to give him some kind of sign. The air between us felt thick, heavy with tension, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that whatever happened next would change everything between us. There was no going back, but instead of pulling away completely, Jason moved closer again. His lips brushed against mine, soft and slow, like he was testing the waters, waiting for me to respond. The kiss was gentle, tender, yet full of something more, something I couldn't quite name but felt deep inside me. Desire, maybe, or something that was too strong to ignore. My body, which had been so tightly wound just moments before, seemed to melt in that moment. I couldn't hold back anymore. The temptation that had been building between us was no longer something I could resist. It had consumed me, and I kissed him back. The moment our lips met again, the world around us seemed to fade away, leaving only the heat between us, the shared longing that was too powerful to deny. The pressure of everything I had tried to hold back seemed to vanish as I gave into it completely. As our embrace deepened, I felt my world shift. Everything, the massage, the quiet moments, the soft kisses, had all led to this one undeniable moment. My mind raced, but my heart was sure I had fallen for the temptation. And I could feel it in the way Jason kissed me back, in the way his hands held me close. It was clear now that he, too, had crossed that line we had both given in. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur, each moment flowing into the next as we explored each other. both physically and emotionally. The connection between us grew stronger with every touch. Every kiss words were unnecessary. We didn't need to speak to understand what we both felt. The chemistry between us was undeniable. Thick in the air, more powerful than anything I had ever experienced. We both knew exactly where this was headed, and yet neither of us seemed to care. There was no turning back now, no way to undo what had already begun. Later, as we lay together, my mind couldn't help but wander back to how everything had changed. In such a short time, what had started as a simple massage, something innocent and comforting, had turned into something far more complicated. My heart raced as I realized how quickly we had crossed a line. I never thought we would, but deep down, I knew this moment would stay with me forever. It would become a part of me, something I would never be able to forget. It wasn't just the massage that had surprised me. It was everything that followed. The way he made me feel, the way I had given in to the temptation that was so strong, so overwhelming, the way it had felt so right. Even though it was so wrong, every part of me knew this wasn't something I should have done. Yet everything in me wanted to hold on to it, to feel that rush of desire again. It was confusing, this mix of guilt and pleasure, and I found myself lost in it. I had never felt this way before, so torn, so full of contradictions. But in that moment, it was the most alive I had ever felt in the days that followed. Things between Jason and me were never the same. What had begun as a simple act of kindness, a massage to ease my aching muscles, had turned into something more complicated, something I couldn't ignore. Every time I saw him, the air seemed to hum with unspoken words, and I could feel the tension between us. Thick and heavy, I had fallen for him. And I could see it in the way he looked at me, the way he touched me with more confidence now. He had enjoyed every moment of it, and deep down I knew that he wasn't the only one. But what now? What would come of this unexpected connection? I didn't have the answers, but one thing was for sure. I couldn't forget about it.